Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm currently a creative director at Achtung, and that is why I chose the topic for tonight, which is the beauty of cross-functional team working. Achtung is Awwwards is an agency, and I think one of the things we're characterized for is working with cross-functional teams. So instead of talking about the theory of it, I wanted to show you a result of a recent project we've worked on called Snelweg Sprookjes. For non-Dutch speakers, it means road tales, and it's a project we did together with Volkswagen. So, this all started with an open brief from Volkswagen, which seemed like, yes, a dream ask, but actually, maybe not, because we didn't really know where to start. Volkswagen just asked us to come up with an idea that would raise brand sympathy. And we thought, okay, modern brands are built through a series of positive interactions and impactful stories. That's how we're going to raise brand sympathy. But what else can we do, actually? And we knew we really wanted to help improve something that concerned us and that Volkswagen could have an important role in. So it's actually all started with an insight. We searched for an insight, and we finally found one that we thought was relevant to the time being, to the brand, which was this, that excessive screen time is actually an issue, and especially when you think about kids. And why is it an issue? Not only because of the obvious reasons, but because it affects something that is really precious to kids, that is imagination. Kids used to spend a lot of time just getting bored, and adults as well. And the less bored we get and the more we entertain ourselves with screens constantly, the more our imagination stops working and we stop using that muscle. So we said, this is interesting. Sorry. Let's see if we can do something about it that is relevant for Volkswagen. We had an insight now. Let's come up with a brilliant idea. And we could have done that in many different ways, but we did it in the Achtung way. We could have done it in the classical advertising way, so narrative thinking, just coming up with a big storytelling idea, but that would probably not have any innovation or smart tactics into it. Or we could have done it the other way, the systematic way, which would be another cool tech idea. Or we could have done it in a cross-functional way, building a team of narrative and systematic thinkers, which looks something like this. This was the team we had working on this project from the very beginning. So, of course, we had a copywriter and an art director, but we also had a creative technologist, a UX designer, digital producer, programming wizard, children's book writer, a brand strategist, a child psychologist, yada, yada, yada. And we all started thinking about this insight and how we could tie it together to our client. So the result, and it's what I'm going to guide you through today, is simplicity is, oh, sorry, my WhatsApp is on, that's terrible. Thank God it's not on the screen. But the result is simplicity and possibility. So the simplicity that comes from storytelling, a big idea, but that actually is amplified with the possibility that systematic thinkers bring to the table with smart techniques and innovation applied to it, all laddering up to a brand message. And this is summarized a little bit, the difference between all these ways of approaching it, by this quote of Benjamin Franklin, which is, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So that was our goal, to make something that not only would tell and teach, but that would also involve kids and help them learn how to use their imagination again. So back to the insight. This was our insight. What could we do about it? Where do kids use screens a lot? And that's in cars, and especially in the backseat of a car. Nowadays, iPads, iPhones have become a really great solution to keep kids entertained on long trips, for example. But the truth is, when we, or some of us, because I'm quite old, but I'm sure most of you are quite young. But when I was little, for example, cars were a place to fill our minds with wonder. This is a nice way of saying it, but of getting really bored as well. But we really spent a lot of time. I used to travel a lot with my parents and look out the window and play all these games like I see. I don't know if everybody in the audience has played that, but you see something and you have to describe it to the rest of the people in the car until they guess it. Or my mom would just tell us stories about the places we were passing by, and well, I would bring them to life in my imagination. So we said, why don't we turn backseat into that again? What if we could actually inspire children to use their imagination using technology without using technology? So the way we thought of doing this was turning ordinary road objects into fascinating stories. For example, windmills would become galactic hairdryers, tunnels would become a launcher platform, or a simple tree would become a magical tree with this whole story behind it. And the result of this was this. Snelweg Sprookjes, location-based audiobooks, so audiobooks that respond to the environment, GPS-based, that bring the highway to life, literally. And I will go in detail into what I mean. But first, very simply, how it worked was we created an app with stories, audiobooks. Parents would choose one of the 4 interactive audiobooks to play in the car. Then they would play the audio and put the phone away. That was a very important thing for us. The phone, the kids were not looking at the screens. They were looking through the window, looking at the world outside. And then they would start using their imagination with a little help from the app. So the story would change as the car drove down the highway, transforming what you were seeing in that moment. If you were looking at a windmill, it would turn it into a part of the story you were listening to. So it really had a magical element to it for the kids. So it got approved by the client. Yay. But now it had to work on every highway of the Netherlands. Okay? Easy task. Make it scalable, the client said. 5,000 kilometers of road that we had to integrate into our stories. Yeah. This was our producer's reaction. How are we going to do this? Well, what we did, we scanned over 5,000 kilometers of roads. We scanned the things that we thought, the objects that we thought were interesting for the stories. We then created an algorithm that would decide which object was more relevant for the story that the child was listening to, because maybe sometimes you would find 2 or 3 objects that were competing against each other, and the algorithm would choose which one it would trigger in the story. And we did this using, we created our own software in the end to do it, but it was a combination of existing databases, open source data, Google Street View, and manual creation, a lot of manual creation. This was a little bit what our infrastructure looked like after we scanned all the roads. And we had, of course, to then do data validation, because a lot of the things that we had scanned was like this. Old badass windmill covered by a tree, won't work for our story. Nobody will see it from the road. So we actually, got an intern, drive all through the Netherlands, and validate data. Yeah, this is our intern. We gave him a cool bottle of whiskey after this. Is he really? So we figured out the technology, but we still had to find a creative structure that would work for this. And we got inspired by our kids, because aren't they all the inspiration anyways? No, but really, children book kids. I don't know if you, whoever is Dutch in the audience will know this book, but it's a mole that has a shit on his head, and he's on a quest to discover who shit on his head. So that solved the problem for us, because we realized we needed to create a quest-like story, which has a beginning, has a middle, and has an end. And it doesn't matter what thing happens in the middle, Like, he goes and asks this bird, did you shit on my head? Then he asks this, I think it's a horse, did you shit on my head? And then he asks the goat, did you shit on my head? So it doesn't matter if he asks the goat first or if he asks the bird first. The story still works. And that's the structure that inspired our story, so we could really make a story that reacted to all the elements in the road and still felt like a cohesive, entertaining story. Yeah, you see it's changing, but it's still the same story. So that's what we did. We created 4 different stories with modular pieces, a beginning, an end, and then centerpieces that were triggered by specific objects that could move around depending on what location you were in. So out of 4 stories, we had, well, thousands of stories that could be listened to across all the highways of the Netherlands. 1 beginning, 40 middle chapters, 1 ending, and this was the brief we gave writers and ourselves because we wrote 1 story as well. So, well, the story was sort of meant to last 15 minutes unless you would have to get out sooner than it would end it before, but make sure you still listen to the ending and it worked correctly. So we started then the writing process. And we went on a road trip because we said we can't really brief children book writers if we don't do one ourselves and we know how to do this shit ourselves. So we went on a road trip, we got inspired, and we created our first character called Turbo Hurrit that is a fruit fly that lives in the ashtray of the car, and he really has ambition to go to the moon. So he's on a quest to get to the moon. And every object across the road is a potential launcher into the moon. So that's really what the story is about. Tunnels become tunnel launchers, chimneys became chimney cannons, electricity were electricity catapults, and well, I won't tell you the ending because you can listen to it yourselves on the app, which is still working. But besides this, besides finding the creative structure, and okay, we figured it out, we said we had to make tech not feel like tech, because in the end, we still had to make it feel like magic was happening for the kids, for them to really be involved and engaged in the experience. So how could we do this? And, well, here came in the beauty of data again. We used weather data, time of the day, and traffic data to make the story react in real time and really describe what was happening around them. So for example, if it was raining, the app would know it was raining and would say, the character would insert a piece that would say, the weather is terrible, let's get a blanket or an umbrella. If it was dark time, at some point the character would say, and now it's nighttime, so you have to exercise your eyes a bit. Or if we were stopped in traffic, suddenly the character would say, why are we slowing down? So that really added an element of wonder to the kids. That made them think like, wow, what is happening here? And then last phase, we went into testing. Another intern, our producer. This project was made thanks to interns. Big kudos to them. Well, we went into pre-recording for all the sounds, storytelling test, visual, software, manual testing, 3 levels of testing. We also drove with our Volkswagen clients with a prototype several times to prove them it worked and that we weren't crazy and that it was really cool. And at some point, which seemed forever, testing was done. This testing lasted about, I think, a month in total. But then we were ready to launch and to brief the writers to create the rest of the stories. So these are some of the writers we collaborated with. Writing was done. And then voices, music, sound effects, making it work all together. And then I wanted to show you just a quick video.
Once upon a time, car rides used to look like this. But nowadays, they look more like this. So how can Volkswagen help bring imagination back to the backseat? By making children curious to look outside again. That's why we created Snelweg Sprookjes, location-based audiobooks that bring the highway to life.
Welcome to Snelweg Sprookjes.
Look outside. Do you see those blades spinning?
We're entering the launch platform. Hold on. 3, 2, 1, go!
We scanned the entire Dutch highway system to identify thousands of lakes, all kinds of tunnels, windmills, and other landmarks along the road. We we turned these ordinary objects into magical chapters in our stories.
We used a computer vision algorithm to detect and tag all objects along the highway. These tags were used as triggers that influenced the story in real time.
Kids just need to listen
Look in the forest. Do you see the deer?
and let their imagination transform their surroundings. We worked in close collaboration with some of the best children's book writers in the Netherlands, who wrote hundreds of modular chapters, all triggered by objects along the road. Since each journey is different, every story is different as well, creating a unique tale for every possible route. In just 4 days, Snelweg Sprookjes reached #1 in the Dutch App Store Books category.
Daar heb je die stomme meeuw weer.
Ik zie de meeuw!
With a mobile idea that takes the child's eyes away from their mobile phones, we created 120,000 kilometers worth of imaginative journeys.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is just, well, to wrap it up, these are the 4 stories we created. We're now looking at expanding this to Volkswagen Mexico and creating new stories because it was actually a really big success, and it makes us really proud because it wasn't an advertising campaign. Still today, I think we get about 1,000 stories generated after almost a year of launching it. And we have an anecdote of the daughter of a friend of ours that would tell her mom, can we take the highway to go to the supermarket, just because she wanted to listen to the story. So that was, yeah, our biggest compliment. And, well, we really like how this is a great example of cross-functional team working and how something, you know, how you need so many different kinds of thinkers together to come up with something that really is beautiful. And, well, in the end, it also, you know, is a reminder that you can't really use your imagination, only forget how to use it. So we are in a quest of our own of reminding kids how to use it again. So thank you all, and thank you for having me.